Good morning, everybody. All right. I'd like to welcome you to the opening ceremony for the 25th Annual Operation Reach Out. This is a ceremony honoring crime victims and the people who serve them. I would like for everyone to please stand for the singing of our national anthem by Reagan Cole, a student at Winfield Elementary School. Reagan.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Reagan. I would like to acknowledge some dignitaries we have here today. Start with Lieutenant Colonel Brad Mankins of the State Police, James Kawash, Clerk of the West Virginia Legislative Commission, Ben Salango, Kanawha County Commissioner, Pat Kelly from Homeland Security, Sheriff Kennedy and Chief Lilly from the Raleigh County Sheriff's Department, Judge Terrace Lango, who's going to speak here in a moment, and last of the dignitaries, I'd like to spend a little bit of time recognizing Don Morris. Don Morris is the first assistant prosecuting attorney of Kanawha County. He's actually going to be retiring, I think he told me 13 days left. He's been with the Kanawha County Prosecutor's Office for 36 years, has handled an incredible amount of cases, I believe 33 murder trials, true champion of crime victims to Kanawha County and to the citizens of Kanawha County. I would like to begin today's ceremony with a moment of silence to honor all crime victims and remember those who are no longer with us. All right. If you haven't seen it yet, we have a tree of remembrance. I hope you've had the opportunity to sign and place a card on the Tree of Remembrance to honor and remember victims. If you haven't done that, we're going to keep it up after the ceremony if you would like to add to that. There are two types of cards. One is We Remember, and the second is I Am a Survivor. Each year, my office recognizes victim advocates, survivors, and others who go above and beyond to serve crime victims and who demonstrate excellence in victim advocacy and justice. We will begin today's ceremony by recognizing this year's awards recipients. And the first person I would like to come up is Angie Kahn. Angie is a survivor who has exhibited exceptional perseverance and determination in dealing with her own victimization. If you look up survivor in Webster's dictionary, you should see a picture of Angie. As a survivor of domestic sex trafficking and abuse, Ms. Kahn strives to freely express her insight and knowledge to those with a desire to learn more about human trafficking. She is an educator, leader, writer, advocate, yogi, and thriver. She is an independent consultant for She Who Dares Consulting, LLC, which she founded in 2018 to help survivors of trauma dare to create lives they desire and deserve. She contracts with multiple agencies in West Virginia and nationally. She currently works as a partner with SOURS, an education group, through a $2 million grant collaboration with the California Department of Social Services. This collaboration involves the Cool Ant Series team, an online anti-human trafficking prevention tool for all youth. In this endeavor, Ms. Kahn is helping provide prevention curriculum to every youth in foster care in California, education and support services to all social service, child welfare providers in the state, and education and support for the California foster families. She also collaborates to provide an intervention curriculum called Ending the Game. They're survivors of commercial sexual exploitation to explore resiliency from coercion. Ms. Kahn consults with the Zero Abuse Project, creating content for their newly launched website, Survivor Space, a website for any adult survivor of childhood sexual abuse to find support and healing through community and online resources and services. She works in partnership with the West Virginia SHIELD Task Force, where she goes into West Virginia middle and high schools to facilitate and conduct body safety assemblies and to educate the students about the topics of abuse, healthy relationships, sextortion, and human trafficking. She also consults with the Children's Home Society of West Virginia, where she educates staff and youth in group foster care about human trafficking. It's my honor to recognize Angie Kahn. Next person I'd like to recognize is Sharon Himman. Sharon is the victim specialist for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Pittsburgh Division, which serves our state. As a victim specialist for the FBI, she provides direct services to federal crime victims across West Virginia, child victims who have suffered unimaginable abuse, victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and human trafficking, as well as other victims who have been scammed of their life savings and victims of other violent and white-collar crimes. Prior to becoming the victim specialist for the FBI, Ms. Herman served as a threat intake examiner for the National Threat Operations Center. She also served as a decade as the victim advocate for the Montague County Prosecutor's Office, where she was recognized for her service by the West Virginia Prosecuting Attorneys Institute. She has worked tirelessly to increase community awareness of victim resources, to encourage community agencies to enhance services for crime victims, and to help to create a more trauma-informed, victim-centered criminal justice response for victims and their families. She provides compassionate advocacy and services for crime victims, helping them to exercise their rights in federal court and supporting victims in their healing and recovery. She's a valuable asset to my office, working alongside my victim witness specialist. It's my distinct pleasure to recognize her with an award for excellence in victim advocacy and justice. Next person I'd like to recognize is Detective Wayne Long of the Raleigh County Sheriff's Office, who is also an FBI Federal Task Force officer. Detective Long serves as a task force officer for the FBI. He was an invaluable asset to our office, and he is highly respected for his thorough investigations and his dedication and compassion for crime victims. According to one of my supervisory assistant U.S. attorneys, Detective Long is one of the hardest working investigators I have worked with. He is extremely trauma sensitive, and many victims disclose abuse and feel comfortable opening up to him. Detective Long is an aggressive investigator focusing on rescuing child victims and holding their abusers accountable. He works long hours, day and night, working cases involving child exploitation and abuse. Often, he works undercover to identify child predators and to stop them before they get a chance to harm a child. He works hard seeking justice and making sure victims are heard and supported. In February of this year, his aggressive investigation resulted in a 30-year sentence for Thomas Mills, a 37-year-old Beckley man, for his abuse of a 15-year-old teen. He's a fierce advocate for his victims, making sure they are notified of the status of their case and referring them to crucial services such as counseling and crime victims compensation. He is a true champion for our kids. I'm proud to recognize Detective Long with the Raleigh County Sheriff's Office. I'd now like to recognize Special Agent Brian Morris with the Homeland Security and HSI. Human trafficking is a form of modern slavery, a multi-billion-dollar criminal industry that denies freedom to over 24 million people around the world. It occurs in every state, including our own. From the girl forced into prostitution at a truck stop, or a child sold to support her parents' drug habits, to the man discovered in a restaurant kitchen, stripped of his passport and held against his will. A few weeks ago, a federal jury here in Charleston convicted a former law enforcement officer of human trafficking. At the time of his offense, the defendant, Larry Clay, was chief of police of the Golly Bridge Police Department, as well as a Fayette County deputy. Special Agent Morris contributed greatly to the prosecution of that case. He's also helped raising the awareness of human trafficking in our state and to identify and rescue victims. He's helping to lead the fight to end human trafficking in this state. Agent Morris has an extensive career in law enforcement. He served 9 years as a West Virginia State Trooper, 5 years as a Secret Service agent prior to joining Homeland Security, for a total of 25 years of service. He's respected by federal, state, and local law enforcement across the state as an expert in working trafficking cases. He is also respected by victim advocates and service providers for his compassion and caring responses when interacting with potential victims. He's been instrumental in helping promote awareness and prevention across the state by conducting training at conferences and speaking to communities about the problems and how the community can help, from law enforcement officers, advocates, correctional staff, nursing students, as well as even school teachers and administrators. He's been crucial to the state's Human Trafficking Task Force, previously serving as chair of the Law Enforcement Committee. He works with law enforcement to raise awareness of trafficking in the state, provides way to help them identify potential trafficking victims, and educates them as the best and most effective way to interview potential witnesses. His exceptional dedication, skill, and tenacity has led to the rescue of numerous victims of sexual assault and human trafficking. He listens to victims and shows them that he cares. Although he's a federal special agent, he has the heart of a victim's advocate. It's my pleasure to recognize Special Agent Brian Morris. The next award recipient is a facility called Branches Domestic Violence Center, and I would like to ask Amanda Weiss-McComas to come up. She is Branches Domestic Violence Shelter Executive Director. Domestic violence has been a problem both in our nation and our state. Has a devastating impact on families and communities across West Virginia. On average, 3 women are murdered every day in this country by an intimate partner or a former intimate partner. At least 1/3 of the homicides in our state are related to domestic violence. Experts estimate that for every victim of domestic violence who is killed, an additional 9 nearly lost their lives. And many others, including children, co-workers, neighbors, and police officers, are injured or killed while trying to stop violent acts or simply because they're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Branches Domestic Violence Center serves a vital role in providing safety, healing, and advocacy to victims in the Southern District of West Virginia. It started as a nonprofit agency in 1980. It educates, advocates, empowers, and enacts change by providing inclusive, life-saving services to those affected by domestic violence and human trafficking. The dedicated program staff works to empower domestic violence victims and their families to help them break the cycle of domestic violence. The program has 2 emergency housing shelters located in Cabell and Putnam counties. It also has outreach offices located in Mason, Putnam, Wayne, and Lincoln counties that are there to provide additional resources to victims such as legal assistance, individual and group counseling, and case management. All of their services to victims are free. Their committed staff works tirelessly to support the victims by meeting them where they are, serving those who are living in abusive relationships, those in the process of leaving homes because of violence, and those who are then working to rebuild their lives following a lifetime of abuse. Their staff provides the expertise and knowledge while respecting the victim's wishes, dignity, and privacy. The program is recognized by courts and communities across the district. Our office values their service, dedications, and compassion to victims in our cases. I'm honored to recognize Branch's Domestic Violence Shelter. The next group I'd like to recognize is the West Virginia Foundation for Rape Information and Services, and I would like to ask their Executive Director, Nancy Hoffman, to come forward. The West Virginia Foundation for Rape Information and Services, or FRIS as it's often known, is West Virginia's state sexual assault coalition. Established in 1982, it is comprised of the state's 9 rape crisis centers and 3 dual programs serving both victims of sexual violence and domestic violence. Their vision is to eliminate sexual violence and stalking and to alleviate the suffering of those who have been victimized. For decades, they have been instrumental in providing education, awareness, and expertise to statewide working groups charged with identifying and addressing sexual violence prevention needs in the state. They have worked alongside police officers, courts, hospitals, colleges, and universities, and other advocates to create a comprehensive prevention plan and strategies for West Virginia. Victims of sexual assault often suffer from tremendous physical, emotional, and psychological trauma because of their victimization. Unfortunately, all too often, victims sometimes must wait long hours in busy emergency departments to get services. They're not allowed to eat, drink, or even go to the bathroom while they wait for a medical exam. And frequently, unfortunately, the physicians or nurses who perform the exams lack the proper training and proficiency in collecting the medical evidence. To change this, in West Virginia, FRS established a statewide Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner Advisory Board, or commonly referred to as SANE. A SANE is a qualification for forensic nurses who will receive special training to conduct sexual assault evidentiary exams for rape victims. This program not only provides sensitive care and support for the victims, probably at the time they most need it, but also suggests these programs may have a positive impact on the prosecution rates in their communities. Their board develops trainings with the goals of ultimately reducing the traumatic impact for victims and increasing the conviction rate of the perpetrators. FRIS has collaborated with statewide agencies and rape crisis centers to establish multidisciplinary training teams who provide technical assistance and training to counties throughout West Virginia. FRIS has been invaluable and an instrumental partner to the West Virginia Human Trafficking Task Force, which is co-chaired by my office and the United States Attorney's Office for the Northern District of West Virginia. They've helped to develop a statewide response model to serve victims of human trafficking, and they serve as primary points of contact when victims are identified by law enforcement, medical professionals, or other agencies. In this capacity, FRS has provided extensive training to their staff and other professionals to help them better respond to the unique challenges of trafficking victims. It's my honor to present the award for excellence in victim advocacy and justice to their Executive Director, Nancy Hoffman. So now come time for a couple guest speakers. And the first guest speaker is I'm going to ask Angie Kahn to reappear. And she is going to talk about her role as a survivor.
Hello, everyone. Fix these. So I love quotes, so I have one. Don't get lost in your pain. Know that one day your pain will become your cure, by Rumi. There was a time when the pain of my traumatic experiences caused by the violent acts of others that occurred on a daily basis almost took me under. If you are here today and you are a victim, a survivor, or a thriver, I want you to know that even if you never disclose to me, I believe you. I support you, and you are not alone in your journey of healing. There is hope in life after experiencing extreme violence. I know this because I am living proof. I have the unique experience of being in a dual role, both as a survivor, now thriver, of extreme violence and polyvictimization, to now someone that serves people youth that used to sit where I did in foster care, and others that are on their journey. And I know that so many times well-intentioned people, agencies, and organizations, we want a compliant and grateful recipient of our generosity. We want closure with every person that we serve. We want a beginning, a middle, and an end. This can sometimes leave and hold survivors under the magnifying lens of compliance in ways that impact their ability to reach out for help and to heal. We can have unrealistic pictures of who we think that we are going to encounter and how we think their lives should look like after we assist them in this process. So often, in our eagerness to help in a complex societal matter like eradicating violent crime, we can get caught up in our own perceptions, expectations, and unrealistic assumptions. The wear and tear of the toll of this immense work and the work that it takes just to help one victim can often leave us cynical and jaded. Where once we had a drive and a passion, we are now left stripped of our ability to see the good in humanity because of the messiness and devastation that we come face to face with every day. And sometimes we even can forget why we started. We begin to repeat verbatim the protocol to deal with the aftermath of this violence and all that's left in its path. And in doing this, the victim is just another one in the lengthy pile that's piling up on our desks. So we decide on a plan of action and we design programs based on the past and theories of this is just what we do here. And in turn, the victim is not able to connect and get the long-term help needed to overcome their circumstances and the reality of the aftermath in their new normal, a life that they're unsure of how to live now. Now, both the provider and the agency and the victim are left to figure this out as they go along. Traditionally, that has led to a rescue mentality where we form a narrative believing that someone that survived a traumatic crime just needs to switch their environment. They just need to do the right things now that they're safe, and they need to follow the given protocol. They can finally move on, right? Wrong. I wish it were that simple. So how do you successfully care for those who are impacted by crime? What is the secret to success when eradicating it from our communities, one person at a time? By elevating their voice. We are not a voice for the voiceless. Survivors of crime and their families who are also affected have a voice, but many times we cannot hear it over what we are saying to them. Ask a survivor what they need. Ask them what they want to feel safe again. Inquire about what are the barriers for them, and then listen to their responses. Create services based on their voice and their needs to thrive and be successful. When we take the time to ask, we give the gift of autonomy back. We give the gift of dignity again. We shift into being more client-centered, which helps the survivor bounce back quicker. This is traditionally where we miss the mark. First, start by asking folks impacted by crime what they need to be a whole person, not just physically, but holistically. The devastating impacts of a violent crime on a person can live on for generations, echoing and causing a ripple in the multitude of even more devastation and victims. Take those needs and find collaborative ways to remove barriers blocking survivors' ability to be their own heroes. Partner with survivors, people with lived experiences, and those in your community through things like mentoring programs for at-risk children and youth. Implement restorative justice in jails and prisons like the Honor Yard through programs like Compassion in Action. It can help bring a stop to generational trauma, which continues this violence and cycles over and over again. Through therapeutic support groups, survivor-led, loved ones that are left behind can heal. Educate your community on the facts, changing the policies and laws. This can be terrifying, and it is messy, but it is also beautiful chaos. It's painfully grievous space where opportunity will exist. People grow where they are loved well. If you want to help others heal, love them without an agenda. For survivors like me of polyvictimization that occurred over a decade, sitting down in the mess of it all with them gives space for their grief and room for them to voice what they missed out on in this life, what they had stolen from them. When we bear witness to another person's pain, that's where healing begins. My pain and tragedy of my lived experiences did not take me completely down the road where I could not find my way back. And now, every day, I am honored to help survivors, social workers, youth in foster care, and many others find their way back too. Never did I think anything good would come out of so much pain. For me, it is a beautiful honor with an equal amount of exhausting heaviness when you are entrusted with holding the sacredness of someone's story and helping them to give words to their grief and their pain. It is also an intense work in an ultimately personal way. To stand along survivors, social workers, mental health professionals, law enforcement. When doing work in therapeutic yoga, we have a saying that the issues are in your tissues. Our body is the divine roadmap of our life story. It is where the residue from all of our lived experiences calls home. I cannot remember the exact moment that the shift happened for me, when I wanted to use my life to help professionals and others understand that people that were once endured great harms are not fragile or mentally ill, although there are effects that are long-term from violence and the impact it has on the person's body and their mind and their soul. And we know that long-term violence can create long-term physical harm. We also know that together we can create those 2-degree shifts that are needed to change the trajectory for the future in our families, in our schools, and in our communities, and ultimately in our country, by inviting survivors like me into spaces where we have not been previously welcomed. In many instances, there are people who have been through great harm at the hands of others and who are using that experience in the work they do. We just need to create the atmosphere where that is the norm instead of the exception. I strongly believe that change is possible, and as we come together, there is power in healthy collaboration. When we as professionals and we as with lived experiences come in collective community, we can provide proven healing modalities that effectively transform lives, restore and bringing traumatized individuals back into community where they belong, into relationship with others. And then we will see our West Virginia communities being transformed from generational trauma through client-first services. because we have taken the time and put the effort in to elevate, engage, and cause effective and lasting change for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kahn. I think you're a living example of both a survivor and a thriver. It's now my honor to introduce the Honorable Tara Slango, Judge of the Kanawha County Circuit Court, who I believe is not only going to share some stories about her role as a judge, but a personal story as well.
All right, good morning. Thank you to U.S. Attorney Will Thompson and his office for organizing this event today. And thank you to all of you for attending as we recognize what is certainly an important cause. I am Tara Slango. I'm a circuit judge here in Kanawha County, a former assistant prosecuting attorney, and a survivor because my brother Todd was murdered when he was only 25 years old. I see many familiar faces in the crowd today, including some folks whom I've grown to know from my days as a prosecuting attorney. They're survivors as they have also had family members murdered and taken from them through violence. Like many others, they join us in remembering not only our loved ones who were taken too soon, but in remembering others who are also survivors. When asked to speak today, I did not hesitate because I know the importance of ceremonies such as this one. I know that as a survivor of a homicide victim, it is so important for families to know that their loved one isn't forgotten. My story as a survivor began when I was just 16 years old. 3 days after my birthday, my oldest brother Todd was brutally murdered. He certainly was the rock of our family. He was a college student, a member of the U.S. Army Reserves, and an amazing brother. His death left a huge void in my life, and it certainly shaped my career path. After attending the trial of the man who murdered Todd, I decided I wanted to become a prosecuting attorney. I remember sitting in the trial, and I watched the attorneys, one who actually was Don Morris, and I watched the judge, and I thought to myself, I want to do this one day. What an amazing job. So I studied criminal justice, and I then went on to law school. I became obsessed with learning the law and how it is applied. It was, and it still is, a fascinating career. I practiced as an assistant prosecuting attorney for 11 years, and I truly enjoyed every minute of that job. I met so many wonderful families who had experienced the same life-altering tragedy as I had, and I knew it was my job to seek justice for them. After years of working as a prosecutor and then as a civil attorney, I decided to run for circuit judge in 2018. After being elected, my role is now different, but just as important. I now must ensure that defendants are treated fairly and that victims still have their say in court. That is why this year's theme of Operation Reach Out is so important. Survivor voices. Elevate, engage, and effect change. That could not be more on point. I can tell you from my perspective as a judge, when I see a victim or a survivor appear in court and give an impact statement, I know that they are exercising their rights and advocating for themselves and their family. I know that it gives them a sense of empowerment and justice. I know the importance of this because I've lived through it. Others know the importance of it because of events like this, giving recognition to those who may not otherwise feel that they are recognized. So today, I remember my brother Todd. I'm thankful that I can speak about him and that I can place his name on a tree filled with the names of other loved ones. I'm thankful that he is not forgotten or just another statistic. I want to thank the folks in the U.S. Attorney's Office and the other advocacy groups who participate in Operation Reach Out. Will Thompson, Tracy Chapman, Andrea Darr, I see Kimberly Eagle. There are so many here who should be commended for their efforts in giving voices to victims. I know the compassion that these folks hold for dealing with the individuals they deal with on a daily basis, and it's truly inspiring. And congratulations to today's awards recipients who are being recognized for their efforts in advocating for justice. Your work is truly appreciated by all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judge Slango. I'd like to take a moment to thank some of the people who have volunteered and worked hard on today's ceremony. If everybody could take just a moment and look at the program or look at it when you're done. There's too many for me to name, but there is a large group that got together to work to make this event come forward. Crime victims, both in my former job as a judge and my current job, crime victims are the most important people I deal with. You know, the agents I might deal with, the defense lawyers, the assistant U.S. attorneys, prosecutors, whoever it might be, that's part of their job, and that's their reasons they're being in court system. The victims, they're only going to be in court one time in their life, and the fact that we should do our very best to try to take care of them and make that as accommodating as possible should be one of the goals of programs such as this. So I would like to thank everyone, from the awards recipients to people who helped, for their work in helping crime victims get through the tragedies they face. I would like to thank everyone for coming today. I want to remind you once again, if you haven't placed a card on the tree, please do so. We do have some refreshments in the back, and thank you again and for serving crime victims throughout the state of West Virginia.